What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another video. I know it's been a minute, but I'm finally back with a week 5 trade target video. What I don't want this video to be is for the 4-0 owner that's going, oh yeah, man, I'm doing so well, I can trade for anybody, I can get any trade. This is going to be a compilation of some buy lows, some players to buy high on, and maybe to target some owners who are not really doing well this year with week 5 buys. So without further ado, let's hop into my first guy in the first category of buy lows. I have two players here that I really think you can buy low on, and it's going to be Austin Eckler is the first guy. He's currently the RB35, and look, we know what Austin Eckler is going to be. We know that he is a pass-catching PPR back, and this is more for PPR and maybe a half PPR league as well, but for the majority, I'm talking about PPR here. Austin Eckler is a good player. And last week, or rather the week before, he got concussed. He was on pace in that Cincinnati game to do something really special. I mean, that dude started off hot. We really like Brian Robinson, and he's currently the RB14, and he's really balling based on his draft capital. My point in Austin Eckler isn't going to be that he's going to play 70% of the snaps, he's going to be the goal line back, because he's none of that. But what he can be is a change of pace, PPR machine. And we haven't really seen him, be a part of this crazy wagon that the Commanders are right now. The Commanders are hot. I mean, Jaden Daniels is playing really, really well. So honestly, I just want pieces of this wagon. Like, I just want to hitch my trailer to this wagon, and I want to go for it. And I think Austin Eckler is a good buy low, coming off a concussion. And after Brian Robinson is doing really well, I think the Austin Eckler owner might be like, hey, listen, this guy's a PPR guy. He's not going to really win me any weeks. I can maybe trade him for a receiver. I think a fair trade would be something like a Tank Dell, a Jackson Smith-Njigba, or maybe the Chargers guys, Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston. I think you can offer those up, and I think you can do a one-for-one trade really easily there if you're trying to give up a receiver for a running back in Austin Eckler. Next up for me is going to be Travis Etienne. And if you've been a part of this channel for a while, you know that I was a huge Travis Etienne fan. I believe he was my number one my guy this year. And this one I don't want to spend a lot of time on because I could just talk for an hour. But Travis Etienne, to me, is just getting so unlucky with everything that's happening to him. So he hasn't had the breakout game yet. But let's look a little bit closer at his season. And I don't want to spend an hour on this, so I'll make it quick. In 3 out of his 4 games, he's had 14 plus touches. In last week's game, he missed some time due to a shoulder injury, but he came back in, and then after halftime, he really took control of that backfield again. After Tank Bigsby kind of was getting a lot of run, but then after halftime, they really turned the ball back over to Etienne. Tank Bigsby had a really big run. He had a 55-yard rush in that game, and honestly, if Etienne was in the game, I think Etienne scores or at least does the same thing as Bigsby. It was pretty open. I mean, he just hit a hole hard. I would admit he did, get through a tackle, which was good, but I think Etienne could have scored on that play. I just believe in Etienne's talent a lot. And in an offense where Tank Bigsby in 2 years has caught a singular pass. This year, he hasn't caught a pass, and last year he caught one. So in 20 games, he has caught one pass. I just think it's going to be Etienne's show for a long time. Bigsby's going to play. He's going to take some touches for sure, but every backfield has it. So I really think when you look at it, Etienne has 57 touches on the year. Bigsby has 21, did miss one game, but it's clearly Etienne's gig. I think you could talk to the Etienne owner where you can go, listen, Etienne hasn't been great this year. Tank Bigsby is really emerging, and look at the yards per carry, and the offense isn't doing well. They haven't won a game in 9 games. They haven't won. I think you could really sell the Tank Bigsby owner the Travis Etienne owner on selling him. And I think you could do something like a Chuba Hubbard and Khalil Shakir, Chuba Hubbard and Amari Cooper. I think you can give up a running back who's doing really well, but might have Jonathan Brooks looming on a emerging Panthers team that maybe I don't totally believe in. I'm not totally buying it. I would sell that for Travis Etienne because I think at the end of the day, Etienne's going to make a big play and he's going to turn his season around. And not even that he's doing that bad, he just hasn't had the big breakout game yet. All right, and then now these are players to target if in your league you have 0-4 and 1-3 owners, right? You want to target those owners that are struggling. And we have week 5 buys, and that's going to be really the big point of emphasis on a lot of these guys is the week 5 buy. So the first one I want to talk about is J.K. Dobbins, RB16. He has a week 5 buy, right? So the Chargers are on buy. And after starting off the season hot with 22 and 20 PPR points, Dobbins has come back with 8 and 9 points. But let's be honest about the last 2 weeks. Week 3 was against Pittsburgh, and they allowed the fewest fantasy points to running backs. And then week 4 against Kansas City, they allowed the second fewest points of fantasy running backs. So he's already played the 2 hardest fantasy defenses for running backs this year. He already got them out of the way. Dobbins has 13, 18, 18, and 18 touches while playing the majority of the Chargers snaps. I don't care about Gus Edwards. The health concern is going to loom because J.K. Dobbins has been injured his whole career. But if you're willing to take the risk, I think Dobbins can be a great player down the stretch. Next up is another running back. I promise we'll start talking about some receivers here shortly. But it's going to be Tony Pollard as the RB18. Once again, another week 5 bye guy. Pollard hasn't blown up the stat sheet this year, but what he has been is a really, really solid RB who's looks to get, the most of the team's snaps and touches out of the backfield. He plays over 60% of the snaps. He's gotten 19, 22, 9, and 24 touches. And Tajay Spears hasn't really gotten that many touches. 8, 8, 6, and then 17 in this last game on Monday Night Football. Pollard is really, I think, mixed in with this Will Levis, now Mason Rudolph stink. But in reality, he's a very solid running back. He's a solid RB2 for your fantasy squad. I don't think he's been properly appreciated or valued this season. And just another running back with a week 5 bye. So I think you can really go to the owner of, Pollard, 0-4 or 1-3, who's struggling and really needs a win. And I think you can get Pollard on the cheap. He had a good week last week, but I think you can really sell it to, listen, man, I mean, he got 22 touches. He broke one big run and got a crappy, meaningless touchdown at the end of the game, which is true. But I think Pollard is destined for bigger and better things. I really like Pollard this year. All right, now to talk about some receivers. And these guys you might have to pay a little bit more for, but I think it'll be worth it. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith from the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, A.J. Brown hasn't played since week 1 since he pulled his hammy. And then Devonta Smith has been huge when A.J. Brown was out. 15, 20, and 15 fantasy points in PPR leagues. But he missed week 4 with a concussion. So I'm not saying it's going to be cheap, but teams who are struggling have to be willing to give up a player. You can't, if you are the owner of A.J. Brown and you're 0-4 or 1-3, you just don't have time to make it through the bye week for him maybe not to play in week 6. You can't take that risk. So I think that you might be able to get A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith. I don't want to say on the cheap, like you're going to have to pay, but I think they'll be willing to give them up for some pieces on your team. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are really awesome players. And I look at it and I go, Jalen Hurts hasn't been that awesome. Right, Willow? Hasn't been that awesome. And honestly, I think you can really sell it to, oh man, you've seen that on prime time. Jalen Hurts just isn't that great. I wouldn't trust these receivers. I'll take these guys off your hands. Obviously, they're not stupid. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are good players, but I think you might be able to package some people together that are going to play next week and just be healthy going forward, so they can maybe, the owner can avoid the A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith situation. Next up on the list is going to be another one to kind of buy low on as a high touted player, and that's Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, and this one's super obvious, has been terrible. I mean, he's been seriously trash, like benchable, almost droppable. Obviously, you're not going to do that, but he's been a benchable player for the last, 3-4 weeks of the season. The Dolphins just played on Monday night against Tennessee, and they got blown out. Tyler Huntley looked terrible. Skylar Thompson's hurt. Tua isn't able to come back until I believe week 8. He's symptom free is what I hear, so he should be back in week 8. But look, if your owner's 0-4, 1-3, they cannot wait for Tyreek Hill. They cannot do it. They have to sell now. Have to. So I think Tyreek Hill owners are really desperate to just get, 50 cents on the dollar with Tyreek Hill. And I have 6 redraft leagues that I take pretty seriously. These are the Tyreek Hill owners' records. 0-4 is 1, 1-3 is 1. There's been 3 owners that are 2-2, and only 1 owner is 3-1. So basically, out of my 6 redraft leagues, 5 of the owners are 2-2 or worse. So if you're a team with some depth and you're willing to maybe wait on Tua to come back for Tyreek Hill, if you have depth and you don't have to play Tyreek Hill right away and you want to kind of stash him for your home stretch, week 8 on, I think Tyreek Hill is a smash stash play this year. I think that's a really smart move to make. You have to be willing and able to sustain him putting up pretty much God, these are fantasy points. So 26 in week 1, then 6, 7, and 8, right? So you need to be able to sustain him not scoring double-digit points, maybe staying on your bench or being a flex. But if you could do that, I think it'll pay off in the home stretch of your, end of season into fantasy playoffs. And quickly, one guy I actually didn't even write in my notes, but I just wanted to include him. It's got to be Brandon Aiyuk. He's been pretty bad this season, 100%, when it seems like everyone else is balling around him. We had the Juwan Jennings huge game. Jordan Mason looks awesome. Deebo Samuel came back and looked like a focal point of the offense. George Kittle came back from his injury, and even before the injury, and was playing well. Everyone is playing well, but Brandon Aiyuk. Brandon Aiyuk is a good player, and we just saw him ball out last year. I don't think this is anything. I don't think it's punishment. I don't think you pay a guy just to punish him. I don't think it's anything like that. I think the offense is just finally getting into the swing of things, and Aiyuk has just not gotten the looks. I am willing to bet on talent, and the situation is that Brandon Aiyuk is a good player. He just proved it to me last year. So if you're a struggling team that you don't want to spend big money on a receiver and you want to take a shot, I think if you're the struggling owner, I think Brandon Aiyuk is the perfect swing. He's the perfect guy to get in some kind of package because you should be able to buy him for cheap. And if it doesn't work out, then it sucks. But if you're the 1-3 manager and you need to take a swing, Brandon Aiyuk could be the season winner. I mean, he could be the league winning kind of turnaround pick if he picks it back up to the pace he was at last year. And I don't see a reason why he can't. All right. And then lastly, I want to talk about some tight ends to buy. And this is really hard to do because tight ends are flat out terrible. I have 2 guys for you. So the one that is going to be pretty hard to trade for, I think, is going to be Jake Ferguson. He's currently the tight end 10. And Ferguson did miss a game, but in points per game, he's actually the tight end 5 this year. He's 3rd in tight end targets, 5th in receptions, 6th in yards, but 0 touchdowns. I'm not saying the Ferguson owner is going to be willing to part ways with him, but in a couple of my leagues, Jake Ferguson was a backup tight end or got picked off of waivers or was a late round draft pick. If you're giving up a legitimate piece for a tight end, I think a fantasy owner will be willing to give up Jake Ferguson, but you have to be willing to give up, I think, a pretty solid receiver or maybe a running back this year. And that's pretty hard to do, but it seems like the tight end position is really fading in fantasy football. And if you aren't the Kittle or Sam Laporta owner, Jake Ferguson's your next best bet, man. So if you want someone a little bit cheaper, now I have an option that is going to probably make you sick. It's probably going to make you want to throw up. But I like Tyler Conklin as the tight end. He's right now tight end 17. So overall stats for the season, he's 19th in receptions, 14th in targets, 15th in yards. Not awesome, right? That looks like a bust. Why would you play this guy? But since week 1, Conklin has played over 90% of the team snaps in every game. And from weeks 3 and 4, so the last 2 weeks, he's gotten 14 targets, which is the 4th most in the NFL for tight ends, 9th in receptions, 6th most in the NFL from tight ends, and has 110 yards, which is 5th. And week 4 was a terrible rain game for the first half of that game where Conklin could, Rodgers could barely even throw the ball. No weapons really did good for New York until the second half. This isn't a sexy pick by any means, but if a tight end is going to play 90% of the snaps in an Aaron Rodgers offense where he doesn't care where the ball goes, as long as it leads to first downs, I think Conklin can easily be a, fringe tight end who in a PPR league or a half PPR league is going to catch, 4 to 5 balls a week. And at this point, the fantasy landscape for tight ends is so bleak. I don't care. I'll take that guy. I have Mark Andrews in my leagues. I just played Mike Gesicki, who got me negative yards. You literally got me negative points this week. So if Tyler Conklin can go out and just be a 5 to 6 points per game type of guy, it's better than nothing. You might be able to pick Tyler Conklin off your waiver wire, or like me, he was a backup for a Sam Laporta owner. And look, I literally just traded Juwan Jennings for him. The kid accepted it right on the spot. Maybe I overpaid. I probably did. So I would say Juwan Jennings are cheaper. You might be able just to get a 1-for-1 trade on Tyler Conklin if you just have, some random receiver on the end of your bench that's been, anywhere decent. You might be able to give like a Trey Tucker with the Davante Adams news looming. Running backs are pretty hard because they're all kind of valuable, but you might be able to give up maybe like a Zach Charbonnet backup type of player for Tyler Conklin. Even that's probably too much. So really just gauge it. Maybe just throw some fab their way, but buy low. And like I said, I got him for Juwan Jennings and the kid didn't even hesitate. He just said, I accepted it on the spot. So he probably felt like he scammed me, but if I'm going to get a tight end that I can play over Mark Andrews, I'll take it. All right, and those were my week 5 trade targets. If you liked the video, leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. Sorry I've been MIA for a while. A lot of work stuff going on. just got engaged. Woo! So a lot of life stuff going on, but I'll be back with the videos, I promise. Fantasy football season has been pretty solid so far, so I'm excited to bring you guys more videos and, hey, talk about more fantasy in the upcoming weeks. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.